Hey everybody, it's Eric Meyer. I am here today to do a quick 45-minute, give or take, EZ Learn beginner data video referencing NCM Motorsports Park in Bowling Green. Love to teach people data. Love to help them learn. Like to start really super simple basic where most people get scared away. They get pushed off and they never look at data again. Guys, trust me, this is easier than you think. It's easier than you think. You just got to start super, super low. And I find that a lot of people in the industry have a hard time doing that. There's a lot of smart data analysts and they talk up here. Let me get my hands off the screen. They talk up here. I'm going to talk down here to reinforce the basics and to introduce folks to data, because something like this happens to be our friends at Apex Pro, right? If you can see that, makes it easier and easier to analyze and capture data. Matter of fact, you can do it just with your iPhone and not even an Apex Pro device, and use this great software for free. So let's get started. So here we're using the free Track Attack software. For about $100 a year, you can get the software and use the very powerful sharing features and the storage features. Currently, the free model only allows you to use it save so many outings, and I believe it's 10. I could be wrong. The Track Attack was recently purchased by a European entity, and I'm not sure if things have changed, but for the most part, that $99 a year is a fantastic deal, because you will, once you learn data, you will reap the benefits. Your lap times will drop. Your cost of consumables will drop. Yeah, that's true. Your brake pad wear will drop. Your tire wear, your tire cost will drop. All these things happen. There's a lot of good things happen when you learn data. And if you don't know that yet, trust me, that's what happens when you drive properly, or more optimally and less suboptimally. So here we are. We're looking at some squiggly lines right here, and I'm gonna do some annotation right here. And these things right here are called squiggly lines. And that squiggly lines term is talked about in this wonderful book by my buddy Chris Brown, who is, it's absolutely wonderful. It's not very thick, so us dumb sales guys can read it, and it's got big pictures. All right. It's actually absolutely wonderful book. You can get it on Amazon. Matt Romanowski has as well. Get it. It's a great book. You can read it in one sitting and go, wow, I understand this stuff. So what he talks about in that book called squiggly lines, that's the industry term. These things right here that you see on the screen are squiggly lines. And we're going to talk about them, because once you make sense of them, and once you make sense of what we're looking at here, just really the basic of when you're looking at data, you look at something like this, it's got lines that go up and down, and it might have several lines like this here, and we're gonna get into it like this, but we're gonna start really slow, and you're gonna understand at the end of this video what you're looking at, and you'll be able to use it yourself. We'll go real nice and slow. Most people who teach data are up here. Trying to get my hands off the screen. Up here, I'm going to go all the way down here, and we're going to reinforce it again and again and again. And we're going to use NCM as a reference track. So if you know NCM and you know it well, or just know it a little bit, I'd recommend you learn data watching this video. If you know Gingerman well and you don't know NCM, I have one for Gingerman. Got one for Autobahn. ... Watch the EZ Learn videos with the track you're most familiar with. Does that make sense? That will get you that will elevate your knowledge base very quickly. So I'm making these videos so that as many tracks as I can. Okie dokie artichoke. So we're going to take off these channels, and I'm going to do a little tutorial in the future of the features of Track Attack here. But right now, I'll do that later. Show you some of these neat things, like how to click on the track maps and change some neat stuff, because there's all kind of all kind of neat doohickeys with this bad boy, but that's not about what we're going to talk about right now. That'll come later. I'll put a link in the bottom. So here we are. We got some squiggly lines. We got some squiggly lines, and in this case, it's the number one squiggly line out there. It's called the speed trace, often called the money channel. This is on the test, by the way. If you're a note taker, anytime I say it's on the test, you should probably write that down. And it's also because there's a beginner data examination, online quiz exam. It's about 100 questions. It's $100. And if you can take that, you are a master and a guru. And everything I do in these videos supports learning the basics, which are 5 things. Speed trace, what you're seeing right here, right now. Long G, what you do with your feet. We'll talk about that in a second. Lat G, steering wheel. A little bit of track map, because you need that for reference. And this thing called the friction circle that we'll talk about briefly. Right now, we're going to talk about speed trace, which is 50% of what you need to learn. It's the result. It's the product. It's the combination of all the things you're doing. So before we get started, we're looking at this squiggly lines graph. And this graph is represented in 2 things. This one right here that goes right to left is called the x-axis. X-axis, this is on the test. It's industry standard that this down here on the bottom is distance. And in this case, it's represented in feet. So this is 0 feet, as you can see here. This is 5,000 feet, 5,000 feet down the track, 10,000, and all the way down here is the finish line. Okay. I'm going to reinforce this again and again. Also on the test is the y-axis, and that's the vertical axis. It's called y. When you see y, think y in the sky. It's the straight up and down. And this could be various different channels. In this case, this is the speed channel. In the future, we're going to add the long G channel and the lateral channel. But this case, this is the money channel, the speed channel, the result. And you can see right here, this is represented in mile per hour. So this is 20 miles an hour, 80, all the way down to 0. And you can scale that differently. So what we have over here is a point on the track that's about halfway through the track right here. It looks like about 9,000 feet. And at that point, we're going, because of this channel, about 115 miles an hour right there. That makes sense? Here's another one where we're slowing down. It's naturally because we're braking, and we're going, 50 miles an hour. And I'm going to show you these again and again so it makes sense. Again, fundamentals. We got our track map over here on the lower left, and I'll be referring to that quite a bit. I'm going to blow it up a little bit so it's nice and big. In this particular case, and for most all of these, this right here, if you know NCM, is the start and finish. And if we click on this little doohickey here, you can see underneath there, especially if I blow it up, that's pretty close. Actually, it's right there. Do you see that right there? Right there is the start and finish. It's pretty close. We could change it. We're not. For the purposes of what we're doing, we'll put that right back in there. That's the start finish. Okay, and in this particular case, this track is running clockwise. So if you've never been here, it's running this way, right? And it's a big long track. Naturally, these are turns, and these are straights, right? And these are tight corners that are tighter and slower, and these are bigger corners, bigger radius corners, which are faster. Okay, let's keep going. What's the name of this axis? What? Can't hear you. You got it. And this one, up and down in the sky. Hint, hint. You betcha. This one's speed in miles per hour. This is distance in feet. Sometimes this is time. We're not going to go there. It's distance. Just remember it's distance. We're out on the track. Okay. So the next thing people typically want to know about the speed trace, they look at this and they're like, dude, I am lost. Hey, kitty. Hello. What you doing, kitty? I am lost. I was too, but I'm going to help you with that. I do a lot of these videos. It is easier than you think. Here's what's going on. Right here at 0 feet, remember that's 0 feet right here. We're going this way. We are back to right here. So this is, 50 feet and 100 and 150 and 1,000 or whatever that is, right? As we go along here. And that's as we slowly move around here. In fact, let's find out at the 2,500 mark. If you look in the lower right of the screen in the track map, you'll see that's 2,500, right? That's 5,000. This is about halfway in here somewhere, right? Halfway around the track. Is that making sense? You're looking in the lower right, you see the little blue guy moving. That's how this works. So what you see here is a braking event, right? Because the speed is going down. And the speed is going down. And in this case, it's going to about 55 miles an hour. And the way we see that and see that easy is by taking our cursor over here. You can see right down here, it says underneath my little Mickey Mouse hand, it says it's in pretty tiny letters, 56 miles an hour. So that's a feature in almost all software. You can turn that on or off if you want. But that is, anytime you see something like that, that minimum speed, that's typically a corner. And if you think about it a second, think about your favorite track in the very first turn, right or left. What do? You're going straight, you brake, you go into the corner, right? You're at apex, you start unwinding the wheel, and you add throttle, right? Pretty simple. And then you go to the next one, which is maybe a slower corner or a faster corner, but you typically brake from 80 to 50. You go around in that corner and you start adding throttle in 51 miles an hour, 52, open the wheel, 53, and then you're going down the next straight. That's exactly what this is. So when you see the bottom of these bad boys, I want you to go, that's a corner, that's a corner, that's a corner, that's a corner. All right. You get it? There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. Okay. This is what you want to think about. So the bottom of those, you're slowing down, it's a corner. How do we know that? Well, let's just pick one. Let's just pick a random one. Let's pick this one right here. And the reason why I like this one right here is because it's really easy to see. And when you see one of these big squiggly lines graphs, it'll jump out at you. And it's right here. The slowest corner on the track, right? Remember, this is speed, faster, slower. This is the slowest corner on the track, right? Fair statement. And this looks to be the fastest. Actually, this is the fastest. And this is right by its start finish line, right? This is right here. This one right here is the slowest corner on the track. And if you've driven NCM, you know it's that one right here. And you also know that about halfway through this x-axis is that slow corner, or about halfway around, right? So here's typically what I do. I look for the slowest corner, and I look for the faster ones. And that helps me understand where I'm at on track. And in this particular case, I can see that there's this one right here, and it's almost always fast on the straights, almost always. So I know that's this, right? Because it's got to start at 0. And then I see this one right here. This is a big long one down here too. That's going to be right here. Okay. Before the braking, right? Because that's the corner. And that's the corner. Okay. And I'm going to look at this one. Big old straight with the little something right there. And that's going to be this guy right here. all the way up through here, right? And that's the brake zone. And then there's this one right here, which is coming onto the front straight. And those little wiggles are actually right in here. So we're coming onto the front straight, and we're going to end when this goes up and stops here, which is right here. Is that making sense? Let's do that again. Slowest corner, really fast one at start finish, right? Big straight, big straight, big straight. See that? I really like this. This tells me automatically where I'm at. I'm like, oh, so you can look at almost any track and go, and especially ones you're familiar with. If you're not familiar with them, it takes a little bit longer. But if you're familiar with them, you're like, oh, I know where that slow corner is. I know where that straightaway is. So this starts putting perspective of these squiggly lines into sort of real life scenario. You can put it in it and put it in a perspective that you can understand. Okay. Is it making sense? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to show you a little bit of the finer nuances as we learn about the speed channel. Speed channel is 50%, 50% of learning data for beginners is the speed channel. It's this right here. And if you can understand this, X, feet, start, finish, if you can understand that, Y in the sky, whatever this channel is, it might be temperature. In this case, it's speed, and it's represented in miles an hour. You are like getting it. So now we're going to look at a couple finer nuances. Interpretation. I want you to see this right here. Do you see that right there? And I want you to see this right here. And I'm exaggerating the shapes a little bit. And this one looks like this. It goes up and it goes like this, and then it goes down. It might be hard to see. This one actually rolls and then goes down. This one goes up, slant, and down. They're kind of hard to see, but they're there. And this is this particular driver's tendency. It goes like this, and then it goes down. I can see those because I know what to look for. And you can too. It's actually in all these. It's the driver's style, or it's the tendency, it's their habit, right? And there are optimum habits, optimum shapes, optimum slopes. Remember, this is the slope right here. For this one right here, this would be a steeper slope if it went like that. Does that make sense? So these are some of the things that we're looking for, not on the test, but I want you to see this because that's what we're looking for. So in this case, I see a ton of these. And what that means, by the way, is that's the driver's braking tendency. They're going to go up, they're going to slowly get on the pedal, and they're going to get on it a little bit harder. I'm going to show you this up close. So we're going to do some zoom in. I'm going to show you that. Put the cursor right here. Probably a little easier to see now, right? So this is what this driver's doing. And we're not evaluating if it's good or bad. That comes in intermediate data. I just want you to see this, okay? This driver is coming up, is real gentle on the brakes, slowly applying the brakes. See this little mark right here? It's kind of a pushing on it harder, and almost like it starts rolling around right in here, and he pushes on it even a little harder. And that's normal, by the way, this little belly. I just want you to see this. If we were to draw a straight line through here, it would kind of look like that. And we call this the belly. The belly. Get in my belly. Okay. Sometimes it exists. Sometimes it doesn't. Depends on the corner. Depends on what that driver's doing in the moment. That's the consistency component. But what's important to note here is this right here. This brake application, and then being more firm. See that there? It's one of the first things we look for when you analyze your own data and when I analyze yours is the conviction, the brake aggression, if you would. Ideally, it looks like this. Here we go. We're going to stay on, and we're going to make a line backwards, right like that. And this area underneath here is the area that we stayed on the throttle longer and then went more quickly to the brakes. Initial push and then a big push in. It's not slamming the nose down. It's putting a little pressure on the nose and then really getting into it, because this is where we want to really start braking. Down here is when we want to let off. So there is a initial application. In this case, right, wouldn't it be great if it looked something like this? Actually, wouldn't it be great if it looked something like this? I'm going to continue with that trace, something like this. So all of this is opportunity. This is where usually the first time when you're looking at data where your opportunity is. You can see it right here. And we'll talk about opportunity in future videos when it's really more of an intermediate. For now, I just want you to understand what these shapes look like. This is about as deep as we'll get in kind of analysis. Okay, kitty. So speed trace, right? Slow braking event, corners, right? Corners, right? Gas, steady, gas, brake, right? Brake, corner. Let me back that up with some other data when we use this mouse. Look over the track map on the, please, on the right, in the lower right. And then look over at the squiggly lines. We are down low and in the middle of that corner, right? And we're going to accelerate. Look at the squiggly lines. 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 We're going to go to just about 100 miles an hour. See where we're at. And we're going to slowly go on the brakes. Look at the track map. And we're going down all the way to the minimum speed right there. Typically that is, you could refer to that as the apex. Maybe not the correct apex, but that's typically the minimum corner speed, and ideally it's at the apex, because you want to accelerate from the apex out, meaning from here out. So when you see these and go, man, that's my corner, and ideally that's the apex right there, right? Somewhere along in here, as a general rule. Again, here to help you understand this and make sense. Really what we're trying to do is bridge this thing with this thing over here so that people go, aha, I get it. You can understand that this is what in the sky, y, and this is x-axis. Is it time or distance? Distance. You got it. Doing great. You are doing great. Keep it up. Time to add another channel. If the speed trace or the money channel, the result channel, the output channel, the how well am I doing channel is 50% of learning data, the next one I'm going to show you is another 30%, and together those two make 80%. And really, these are the only two that if you can understand this, you're going to understand data. So here we go. I'm going to go up to, I'm going to go right up here to channels. And I'm going to pick this GPS longitudinal. By the way, do you see these three channels right here? But this is Apex Pro data. And I know that because right there where my cursor is, it says Apex score, which we'll get to in some intermediate videos. But that's how I know this data came from an Apex device and shared it on Track Attack. But these GPS channels are the ones that you want to use. And then what we're going to do, that 30% thing we're going to talk about, that longitudinal, is right there. And now we have two squiggly lines. Don't be afraid. I'll suggest to you that this is the same one. This is the same one right here. Just looks a little different. What we got? Well, we still got the y-axis going up and down, and we still got the distance. So this spot right here at 7,800 is the same spot as somewhere in here, 7,800. But in this case, instead of measuring mile per hour, it's measuring longitudinal G's, long G's, longitudinal G's. And what that really means, and I'm gonna this is my favorite channel, and you'll use this one the most, both in understanding data and in your first playing with data. You don't need fancy sensors. This is all GPS generated. You can do it with one of these. Harry's lap timer does it. It's not very good. Not very good even with a external antenna. Get a AIM Solo or Apex Pro. Get something decent. That has a good GPS processor and the ability to good memory, fast memory. You want that in the data, because you don't want it to be real sketchy and snapshots like here and here and here. If that was the case, the speed trace would look like this, because it's sampling, taking snapshots ever so often. You want it nice and fluid, right? These are a bunch of pictures that are being taken along here, recording along the way. Same way with this longitudinal G. Okay, long G. What you need to know when this is on the test. Long G is what you do with your feet, which are braking and gas. Long G is feet. Long is feet. Here's that channel right here. Long G and feet, and it's measured in G's, as in G forces. Whereas speed is measured in mile per hour, unit of measure mile per hour. Long G's, or longitude acceleration, accelerating or decelerating, is measured in G's, is noted right there. This zero value is neither accelerating, notice how I went up, nor decelerating, which is down. So anything above this line is where the car is accelerating, and anything below this line is where it's braking or decelerating. It's on the test. Up is positive, accelerating. You can see that right there. Those are positive values above zero. Remember, there's our zero right here. You can see right over here, there's a negative value. So on the test where it says, what's the maximum braking G's? And I say 1, it's not necessarily true. It's -1. So negative values are below this zero line right here and indicate braking. Positive are acceleration and are above. Okay, look at that. X-axis, Y-axis, mile per hour over here, G's over here, positive G's, negative G's. Now you can see way over here on this axis that this bad boy goes to -1.2. A car can brake harder than it can accelerate, unless it's a dragster, right? Dragster's got a lot of motor and tiny little brakes. If you ever see dragster brakes, you'd be shocked. That's why there's a parachute to help slow them down. What you see here is -1.2, and up here in this case, 0.6. So 60% of a G, or 0.6 of a G. And what this would indicate right here is that this part on the track right here, which looks like a corner, right? Right here at, what is that, 5,400 or something like that. We're going to find out. 5,400. See that corner right here over on the track map on the right? That's where that's at. And as we accelerate out of it, you see the track map over there? Let me clear this off, might be easier to see. as we accelerate out of that, right, the speed's going up. Let me make sure everybody sees that. So as we leave the corner, remember we already knew this from before. There's the apex, there's the corner, right? And if you remember, that's right over here, right? That line, this line right here is where this dude is right here. So he's just leaving the corner. He's just accelerating, right? There's the apex, which is about right here, right? Little blue square at NCM. And what you see here, this is really important, is if we make a line up where that car starts accelerating, there's the acceleration point. If we make a line all the way up, watch what's going to happen. Ta-da! Above the zero line, positive G's, is acceleration. Making sense? Are we accelerating right here? And are we accelerating right here? And are we accelerating right here? It's on the zero line. Well, let's take a look. This is how you learn data. It's kind of flat. Remember, it goes whoop, whoop, like that. So it is going up a little bit, right? It is about like that angle. Here it starts going up, which is this part right here. I want to show you something. See this right here? This part that I'm doing right now, right there, is not braking because it's above the zero line. And if we go all the way down, trying to draw straight here, this thing is still going up till right about here. It is at this point right here, or better yet, this point indicates deceleration. So above, below the line is where the car is decelerating. And you can see that right in here as it starts to fall over. It's making sense? Long G is your feet. This is positive up here. This is negative. This is acceleration. This is deceleration. What I like to recommend everyone do is relate all three of these together. Okay, you certainly want to relate these two, because when this goes up, this is over here, even when it's fallen over, because this is above the zero, right? And then when this starts going down, that's here. You can see that right here. Trying to draw a straight line right there. You see that? This is typically the minimum speed, or neither zero, accel or decel, and it's near the apex. See that right there? Little hints on the test, by the way. Right there, near or at the apex, depending on where you apex. See that right there? Making sense. Acceleration goes up. This isn't braking right here. This isn't braking. See that? Still going up. It's just not going up at a fast click, at a fast rate, but it's still accelerating. And we can probably figure out why that is on that particular part of the track. Let's put the cursor right here and find out. Well, see that? Look over at the track map. It's going through a corner. So it's still accelerating, but it's not accelerating. Well, this is a great thing to look at. Let's do this. I want you to see this relationship. So we're still accelerating, right? Through here. This does not mean we're braking because it's above this line. It just means right here we're accelerating at at lower G's. It's not throwing us back as much. Right here, throwing us back. Right? Right here, in here, throwing us forward. Just making sense? Good. It's on the test. Okay, little summary. Got the track map going on over here. We got 50% of what we need to learn in the squiggly lines is the speed trace. We got the x-axis. We got the y-axis. Over here, we got long G's. That's your feet, what your feet's doing. Above it, acceleration is positive. It's on the test. below it is negative, and the car can decelerate more than it can accelerate. So you can see here pulling about -1 G's, but over here we're only pulling about, looks like about 0.5. Actually right here is a little higher, 0.6. Right, do you see that? So on the test, car brakes harder than it can accelerate as a general rule, unless actually pretty much all sports cars will do that. Almost every car, by the way, sports car with a high performance summer tire can see -1 G in braking if you really get out on a dry surface, a well balanced sports car, not so much a passenger car or a minivan. Okay, so these are the 3 of the 5 that we're learning. Remember right there, speed trace, long G, track map for reference. And we're going to get into some Apex Pro and some AIM track maps a little bit later, because they're colored and they tell you a lot. They allow you to see all these relationships together, this triad of sorts. Okay, so we're going to keep going. And the next channel we're going to add, if we had our hands right here, excuse me, our feet right here, we're going to add our hands, or steering. And that looks like this. Also a GPS generated channel, right? GPS speed, which is right here, GPS long right here, GPS lateral. Lateral is your hands. This is easy to learn. I don't use it as much as a beginner. I use a lot of long and speed together. Remember I said 80%, but lateral is turning. So these lateral loads, you hear about cars in Road and Track and Car and Driver, and they're 1.2 lateral Gs. That's what this is. This is the channel that we're looking at. That's the hand channel. Another video of me drinking water. Just kidding. Okay, so this is the same scenario, right? Y in the sky. Really, this is the same thing as this, but instead of measuring your longitudinal with your feet, it's measuring your hands. And this is a lot of cornering force, and this is no cornering force, and this is a lot of cornering force. Is this making sense? So let's pull it all together so it makes sense, so we can move forward and do some more fun things. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. I'll show you something neat. And let's go down here. Let's go down here. This will make sense. Yeah, let's go right here. Do you see this area right here that's near the 0 line? Well, that would indicate your steering, and not a lot of side to side lateral motions, right? Because those values are very, very tiny. Well, look what's going on over here. We're in a straightaway. Makes sense? Wheel is straight. We're going to see that same thing on the front straight as well. Let's take a look at that. So there it is, right? If you look at the long G and you go, well, I know that, or the speed tracing, go, well, I know that's a really slow corner, and I know this is fast. Remember, we're looking at speed, and this is fast, right? And this is braking, and this is braking, and I know this is a big straightaway. And then we look over here at long G, remember, braking and acceleration. We see this thing and go, wow, that's a big braking event. Look how low it is. And so is this one, big braking event. Here's a big acceleration event. Check this out. Big acceleration event goes with that slow corner, goes with over here. Right? You see that? Makes sense, right? Slow corner, get on the gas. It's usually tight, big acceleration. Right? Does that make sense? So here's some tricks about looking at lat G. and going, where the heck am I on the track? Well, if you look right here, there's zero steering. That's a straight. Has to be, right? And you could say that's the same thing for that, and that wheel's a little bit straight. We're going to see where these are at in a bit. And here's the straight coming off the this little straight right here. So this right here, where the hands are straight, is the same as this right here. Makes sense, right? Before we go into the corner, we turn right, and that's what this dude is. Right? And then we flick it back. Right? And then we flick it back. That's what these are. It's a little more complex. Remember, 80% of learning this stuff is right here. But all you need to know is these are corners, right? And you have to look on here, and it says lat. Remember, it's the same scale, right? It's G's. It's G's right here. In this case, it's lateral, and it's almost the same on both sides, right? Looks like 1.2 here, and maybe about 1.2 right here. And these are also referred to in negative and positive, just like these up here. So we're going to make another relationship here, and I'm going to take my mouse. I want you to look over at the track map and just see that that we're in a high loaded corner right here. Now look over at the squiggly lines. See right down here on the bottom where my little Mickey Mouse hand is? There's a lot of lateral load. There's there's 1.3 Gs or negative 1.3 Gs. This is a right-hand corner. And we look up here, and here's another corner, right? That's 1.26. Let's look at the sinkhole. Here's what the sinkhole looks like. See how it's longer right here? Do you see that? Actually, let's do this. Let's do this. Make this real easy to see. And I'm going to zoom in on the track. This is why I like using this software. This is the sinkhole. You'll know that that the track comes this way, right? And this is and it dips down right here, goes into a little sink into the hole. And there's a bunch of big load right here. Okay, that big load area is right here. This is all that lateral right here. It's just not right here to right here, because this is also a lot right here up, right? So it's basically all of this right here. And this area, which is distance, right? Which looks like about 13.4 to 1,400, 600 feet. 600 feet of where we are from right there, right? Look on the track map. Keep looking on the track map, right to there, right? A lot of G's, right? That's what this is measuring, lateral G's. Turning left, our shoulders pushing on our instructor or our buddy or nothing, our armrest, our side of our seat. And that's what that is. And you'll notice that, let me get rid of some of these bad boys. You'll notice, just like we had up here when we crossed the 0 axis for the long G, right? When we cross the 0 axis from the long G, right? Remember, below this went to braking with the cursor right here, right? Look what happens when we're down here. We got up here when we're crossing the long G, we have blended in some wheel input, right? That's what that means, right? We're starting to get a little bit of lateral load. In this case, about 0.6 Gs or negative 0.6 Gs. We are transitioning and putting wheel in. We're turning the wheel. So any of this stuff is, we're turning the wheel, right? And if you understand this, this is exiting the sinkhole, which is why you get all this crazy stuff, right? Wah, 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 and then onto the straight. Do you see that? Here's a speed trace, right? Onto the straight. See these little squigglies right here in mile per hour? There you go. This is a nice build of speed, right? This is the reason why they prioritize the corner that leads to the longest straight, right? Because all of these values right here have some software problems. Bear with me. Because this is how important that is. 1 mile an hour coming out of right here typically does this. I'm going to try to draw this just above this a little bit. And then it literally starts getting more and more and more. So it's like 3 miles an hour. So ye who goes flat first and stays flat is the winner. Goes flat first and stays. If you go flat and you have to lift, fail. That's on the test. It's when you can go flat and hold it. And in this particular track, I'll give you some tips here. You want to put the car here on this side of the track as quickly as you can and start that big straightaway. Let me give you some Eric Meyer tips here on the track. Coach a lot of people on this track. A lot. So here's our big straightaway. All right. I'm going to come down here. It's the longest straight on the track. Most people will try to push it here and 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 push it here, push it here and push it here. And then they get about here and they'll go to full throttle. That's pretty normal DE behavior, low levels of DE, DE1, DE2, not so much DE3. You're usually screened and you're not allowed to advance if you have that. But what you want to do is when you're setting this bad boy up is this. This is how you prioritize corners. This is really what it looks like. Remember, look at our speed trace over here. See, we're down low at the slowest speed and it starts to go up. Then it comes down a little bit with the pause of the throttle. Then it goes up and pauses. You want to put this car on this side of the track, or rather that side of the track right here. This is your goal. Your goal is to put, not to get there the most quickly. That's not you're not trying to race to get here. You're trying to set up, which involves putting the car on this side of the track to do a very late apex right here to get the car here to go flat. Boom, gone. You want to be flat on the throttle right there. If you're feathering and you're playing and you're giving and taking through here, you're not following the rule of ye who goes to 100% throttle and can hold it first wins, because you'd be doing this. That rule of thumb is true. This is the longest straight on the corner. Okay, we've done 4 out of the 5 basic concepts. We did speed trace, money channel, most important one. We did the long G, what you're doing with your feet. We did the lateral G, what you're doing with your hands. We interwove them a little bit along with the track map. That's 4 things. We have 1 left. It's called the friction circle. We're going to do a little bit of friction circle, and then we'll come back and pull all this together for NCM. Don't be afraid. I got you. This next one sometimes blows people away, but if you remember about long G and you remember about lat G, you'll get this. Here we go. This is called the friction circle. It's usually that round thing, usually that thing that looks like this, right? And they teach you in DE class, it's kind of like a target, right? And talk about that little dot jumping around. Sometimes you see that in your car, right? And it goes down here when you're braking, it goes over here, and all that kind of stuff. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, well, stay tuned. You can learn. So in this particular class, they're just calling this the XY plot. And it's XY because, right, X, Y, X, Y. This is the XY plot. You can see that right here. Okay, a little bit harder to see. And what we're going to do, we're going to highlight several laps to, and by the way, thank you, Kevin, for sharing your data with us. Perfect data. Shared, highlighted a bunch of laps here, and what I'm going to do just for fun is I'm going to make some of these a darker color because it's easier to see. Some of them are too light. This is another feature to change the colors. And yeah, we're starting to see these a little bit better. Let's do that green one, change that to black too. See that? Okay, so here's what I'm looking at. And here's all you need to know about the friction circle. Ready for this? Y, X, lateral, longitudinal. Longitudinal is what? Your feet, right? So this vertical thing, just like our speed, just like our squiggly lines over here. Remember, acceleration was to the top and braking was to the down. Same thing over here. So this is our 0 line. This is acceleration. This is braking. All down in here. And these are right-hand turns on this side. And these are left-hand turns on this side. Most people get smoked on this. If you get that, you're ahead of the game. That's not on the test. This is on the test. What's the maximum value of this left-hand turn right now in G's for lateral? This is on the test. Well, we got all these dots down here, and these dots are, imagine a stopwatch, electronic stopwatch going on in your car, and they're sampled at 10 times a second or 10 hertz, HZ hertz. It's on the test. It's frequency of how many times something happens per second. So the answer to how many we're getting here looks like about 1.4 lateral Gs Kevin is getting in his GT3 Porsche. Excellent driver. And if we look over here, this is usually about the same, and it's pretty darn close, about 1.4. This is on the test. In other words, how wide is, how much grip are we getting? 1.4, that's fantastic. 1.4, 1.4 lateral grip. That's huge. He's really hoofing the car. He's making it work. There's two more components to this, acceleration wise, and this looks to be about 5.55 maybe. That's 5 right here, about 0.55, maybe close to 6, but you get the idea. That's a performance car acceleration. This was a Miata. It's only going to get like 0.2, maybe 0.3 if it's downhill with the tailwind, bump draft. Braking, a lot of cars are the same in braking. Almost all cars can get negative 1 G longitudinally in braking. The better the suspension, the better the tire, and the stronger and more assertive the driver is on the brakes, the more G's you can get. This is where most people leave the braking on the table. They're just too gentle. And this is where coaches can help you. In this particular case, we see some dots down here. All right, we see some right here. So he's at least doing about 1.3, and there's some guys down here. He's somewhere down in here, almost touching 1.4. He's touching 1.3 for sure. That's on the test. So that's it. What's on the test? This. How far is it out on the corners? Right, what do we say about 1.4 over here, and about 1.4 over here? And how about acceleration? Right, this is your feet, right? Looks like about 0.6, and braking maybe someplace in there, about negative 1.5. That's it. That's the test, guys. It's the same stuff that is over here on our squiggly lines. Well, trying to be same stuff over here on our squiggly lines. And this is, by the way, this is all the laps represented. That's not on the test. We're just doing one. Just understand one. This is all comparison. This is intermediate type stuff. We're just going to pick one. In this case, this bold one right here, which is the fastest lap time. And there you go, right? This was that braking, right? That braking we talked about right here that we just saw just a second ago, right? And looks like this one was like the big acceleration. And it looks like maybe this one was maybe all of these. That's probably this one. This one was one of the big lat G's, as is maybe this one right here, right? Those were the outside of that friction circle. This one and this one, right? And this one outside. And then up here, this is braking. So this was the bottom. This is on the test. And this was accelerating. This is on the top. That's all you need to know. It's pretty simple. So there you have it. Now we're going to pull it all together by just going back to this one simple thing. Money channel. This is all you need to know right here. Remember I said it was 50% of what you need to know? Are you seeing this now? Hopefully you are. Hopefully I've done my job well, right? There you go. That's a corner. That's somewhere in an apex. It's min speed, right? And we're accelerating, right? And then we're accelerating a little less. And there's a little deal right there. And we brake a little bit. Then we brake a little harder. And then we brake a little more, right? Is it making sense? Then we get on the gas again because there's another corner right here. And we repeat. That's all this is. It's a bunch of acceleration, brake, and corners, right? Acceleration, brake, corners. There you have it. Watch another video of another track that you know, just like this, 45 minutes, an hour. I don't know how long I've been going here. But you do these a couple of times and you either collect your data or come find me. I'll have some Apex Pro units or Michael Cooper at any of the track events. I usually carry 3 or 4 in my bag. I'll be happy to stick them in your car, show you how they work, take a look at this data so that you can go, oh, wow, that's what I'm doing. Guys, this is how you learn. This is how you learn to optimize your driving. This is how you learn to get better. This is how a performance recorder. If you lift weights, it's the weight, it's the number on the side of the weights, so you know how much you're lifting. Man, imagine if you didn't have weights, you don't know how much you're pushing. Same way for a runner, you know, you got your stopwatch. You need to know that, right? You need to know your 5K time. You need to know your 1 mile time, right? So that's what this is, the ability to drill down and see what you're doing, try to find trends, which we'll do in intermediate. But for right now, this is beginner. Congratulations. If you got this, keep going. You can't do enough of this. You can't do enough of this. The more you do the basics, trust me on this one. The more you do the basics, the more all this comes together. If you try to jump ahead because you're like, oh man, I got this, you're going to lose it. And then you're probably never going to do this again. That's my history with data. And if I can help in any way, let me know. I'm at the track. I'm Eric Meyer. Contact info is below. Send me your data. I'll be happy to look at it. And we're going to have some giveaways for some data analysis here soon. So stay tuned for that. I'm Eric Meyer. We'll see you.